Okay, so what I hope that my story highlights is that mentoring is a little bit different today than it was, say, 20 years ago. So, in the yester world, we'll call it, people used to think of a mentor as folks like Mr. Miyagi and Yoda, who were basically know it alls in a good way and with whom you'd have a single relationship over time and they'd meet all your developmental needs. So, it was a one size fits all, one person fits all sort of approach. And per the beginning of the first video, what I explained is that mentoring doesn't look like that because people transition from job to job too frequently and they're frankly just very busy. So even though I was very lucky in having a true mentor in Kathy Cram, it's very likely that you will need to get your mentoring like support from a whole network of people. So out with the old and in with the new. And so this picture up on the upper right here represents a network. So you are going to have varied relationships that provide different amounts and types of support. And the key is that it all starts with you and what your needs are. You have to figure out, where do I want to be in 3 to 5 years, maybe longer? What skills and knowledge bases do I need to have in order to be successful? And then who in my environment might I go to in order to secure that kind of support? And so one person might be your sponsor, and a sponsor is somebody who is willing to put his or her political power behind you to help you advance in an organization. You might have somebody else who coaches you. You might have somebody who helps you make career decisions. Now, those could be all different people from different walks of life. So when you filled out your developmental network questionnaire, the goal was to get you to think more instead on the right here to the notion of advanced mentoring. The idea that you are at the center and there could be a whole bunch of different people helping you and providing developmental support. So I have on here at the bottom, could be a formal mentor, it could be a peer outside your division, a customer, a peer in a different segment or profession, and so forth. But the goal is that you really need to be driving your development rather than waiting for somebody to come and be attracted to you as a protege. That may happen, and you may need to be on the lookout for that. You do need to be on the lookout for that. However, it's not necessarily going to happen to you, and instead you have to be in the driver's seat. So what I want to highlight for you first is there's this idea of a mentoring continuum. And on the right would be mentoring relationship interactions, where you have an existing mentoring relationship, you each would identify yourselves in one, and you interact. Now on the far left is what's called a mentoring episode. So that could be a single interaction that you have with somebody that confers developmental support to you. So it literally could be like a half-hour discussion that you have with a professor, with a professional in an industry of interest to you, to a parent, in terms of his or her leadership development. So it's any kind of conversation, a single conversation that allows you to develop as a person. Now, here from left to right, you can see that if you interacted with somebody once, that would just be a mentoring episode. If you continue to interact with that person, say 3, 4, 5, 6 times, there's probably a tipping point, at which point you would then identify yourself in an actual relationship. I introduced this to you because this is one of the more contemporary ways of thinking about mentoring, and that is that more than anything, we got to be thinking about episodes first, and then if we want to interact with people again and again, then they should be part of our actual ongoing network where people are more engaged with you in order to provide your development. Let me give you a quick example. When I was in grad school, there's a gentleman named Adam Grant who was very young, graduated from Harvard with his doctorate very quickly, and was publishing like gangbusters. And everybody was talking about this guy. And some colleagues of mine and I were saying, what is he doing that's making him so successful? And I said, I'd really love to find out. So I emailed him and asked for 15 minutes. And he promptly wrote back to me and said, hey, let's talk for an hour on the phone. And we talked. And it was incredibly beneficial, both for me in terms of research and in teaching my classes. Now, I don't consider him as part of my developmental network, but it was a very important mentoring episode for me. And that's what you really need to focus on having. Now, here is this is a set of the types of relationships you might have in your network. And if you notice, there are 6 from left to right. Now, in the most orange, and we'll say kind of more inner circle-ish area, you have people who are providing you with psychosocial support. In the green, you have people who are providing career support. And there's the overlap with them, in which if they're providing a lot of psychosocial and career support, you have a full service mentor. On the far left, it could be a personal guide where they're providing mostly psychosocial support with you. Yes, you interact, but not that frequently. And then on the same, number 5 would be the career guide, who's akin to that type of interaction, but on the career side. And the last one, on the far right in your outer circle, might be a role model, somebody you admire who you sort of watch and emulate his or her behavior, but it's one way. They're not really actively helping you. You just recognize them as somebody who you can watch and strive to be like. And it could be someone alive. Some have argued that it could be someone who has passed, but whose career or style of leadership you appreciate and want to learn more from. Now, here's the key. You are the one in charge of managing your network. So if you look from left to right, you could argue as a process. The first starts with knowing why. So you need to know yourself and your strengths and your growth needs, and then start from moving to the right. Once you know what your goals are, or what knowledge bases and skills you need to develop, then thinking of the knowing how. That is, how effectively do I reach out to other people to gain mentoring-like support? So you have to think to yourself, do I have the chutzpah to reach out to people for developmental episodes, mentoring episodes? Do I tend to express appreciation afterward, write a thank you, act upon that advice, and then follow up with the person? Do I have the right attitudes towards seeking help in general? In my own research, I found that people who were very good with building mentoring-like relationships had the attitude that everybody wants to help them, as long as it's just a short period of time and that person expresses a thank you. So you have to assess, okay, can I reach out to people, and then push yourself to do it. Now, the knowing whom is when you really have to start tackling your actual network. And you see under knowing whom, it reads a contingency approach to networks, which suggests, per my colleague at Harvard, Monica Higgins, that the network that you need to have, the developmental network you need to have, is contingent upon your unique needs and who there is in your landscape who might provide support. And then if you look, there's now a growing body of research that shows that the type of network that you have, if it's responsive to your unique needs, can lead to more positive outcomes like enhanced self-awareness, greater performance at work. The idea being the more support you get from your network and the more diverse it is in terms of representation across different social spheres, the more likely you're going to have positive outcomes, like the possibility of being a true high performer, learning, job satisfaction, etc. Now, what does this mean for you? So, number one, you need to start by evaluating your goals and aspirations. You need to consider what knowledge you need to hone, and then start to identify people in your environment who you could reach out to, who could provide the knowledge, even if it's in chunks, so like a single mentoring episode. Who can help and why? Now, you need to be open to feedback because it's going to help you to be good at your job, and you are more apt to be targeted by a potential mentor or what's called developer if you're good at your job. Everybody wants to hitch a wagon to a star. So be open to that feedback and really be willing to change. Do reach out for help, but be prepared and have your own solutions in mind when you're doing it so that you can demonstrate competence even in reaching out for that support. Watch when people seem interested in you and be receptive to their guiding you. Learn from a variety of people and in a variety of ways. Try to find things in common with developers. So even though you might be different from somebody in terms of, say, age, gender, and other ways, try and find something in common. Maybe you like a hobby, the same hobby, or sport, or something that can help you develop some sort of commonality with that person. Okay, you need to choose your developers well. There's a whole body of literature by some very good work by some researchers on negative experiences in mentoring. And that happens very often when people don't choose the right people for them. So, for example, you want to make sure that you choose someone who's dependable, who's honest, who will give you credit when relevant, and who will truly invest in you. Another is to get interdependent with people. It may well be that you need to seek out opportunities that allow you to be interdependent with people who might well mentor you at work. So get on some special task force, some subcommittee, something that exposes you to different people. And when they can work with you and be interdependent, it gives the chance to grow a relationship and show your competence. A key is here also to make it mutual and help other people. One key element of the Frances Mumford case is, if you notice, that Frances Mumford did develop a diverse network of peers and seniors who were willing to sponsor and mentor her. But it all started with her providing help to them. You know, she was looking for their weaknesses and ways that she could help compensate for that. And she was very junior, but she happened to be good with technology, and that is, say, PowerPoint, Excel, and that made her attractive to some people who were not as good with technology. They wanted her to come along for the ride on these really good engagements because she was willing to help them. Adam Grant, the gentleman who I reached out to for a mentoring episode now about a decade ago, has written a great book called Give and Take, and it's about the idea that, contrary to what you might think in a the alleged dog-eat-dog world, that it's really going to be the takers who win the day, that people who are givers, who are willing to help other people, as long as it doesn't sap their time and they can be strategic about it, givers of the world who help others actually can get ahead, and that can be you. I highly recommend that book. Try to gain positions with autonomy and visibility. That will make it so that you are able to shine and be more attractive as a mentee. And try to find sponsors. If you want to advance in an organization, you need to be interacting with people with political power, that muscle that can help you advance and are willing to put your name, their name on the line for you. Here's some recommended reading for you if you ever wanted to take a look. The Grant book that I mentioned. There's a great article from MIT Sloan Management Review by some colleagues of mine on assembling your personal board of advisors, which is your mentoring network. And I wrote an article with Kathy Cram and Tim Hall in the Wall Street Journal called How to Be a Smart Protege that I would recommend as well.